Ahoy mateys and welcome aboard, I'm Rattledy Bones, and today I got a video that's gonna rattle your bones. Today mateys, we're talking about King Cobra jfs. We're gonna be talking about what he did, his career, and how he got to where he is nowadays. I do want to start this video off by of course saying King Cobra jfs has passed away. He passed away sometime last year, and it was very heartbreaking for a lot of his fans. We're gonna be talking a little bit about that today, what had led to that point, and of course, what his dad had to say on the topic. His dad has made a few videos on his channel and on his own about King Cobra, the trolls, and mourning the loss of his son. Wanted to go ahead and start off by saying, happy birthday, King Cobra. Today is March 26th, and today is his birthday. I thought, what a beautiful way to commemorate one of my favorite lolcows, who was not a creep in any way, and to show my appreciation for that, I thought I'd make a video about him on his birthday. Now, of course, again, we're going to be talking about some of the stuff he did, and not a lot of it's pretty, and he's made some heavy mistakes, but you don't make no mistakes, mateys, as he was a decent guy. He, like I said, he had a lot of mistakes under his belt, but at least he wasn't a creep, and that counts for something nowadays. I mean, it really does. So let's get into it, mateys. King Cobra jfs first made his YouTube channel called Gothic King Cobra in 2011. He would talk about guitar stuff, show off his girlfriend, gothic stuff of course, and even fighting with the trolls, because even back then he had his fair share of bullies and trolls. This could be because he had Asperger's and had a hard time talking with people or making friends, but really, people don't need a reason to bully him. If you just look different, which King Cobra did slightly look different, you'll get made fun of, which is very unfortunate but a hard truth of life. During this ban though, we saw the brink of something beautiful and brand new, something we've all come to know and love. This ban will result in King Cobra making his new channel in 2012 called King Cobra jfs. Throughout his career, he's made a lot of awful mistakes, but he's also done some good. While not being the worst of all people in the lolcow status, he wasn't best neither. Though I think he's a runner-up for the best lolcow if there is such a thing. A lot of people would come into King Cobra's life, and they would influence him in a lot of negative ways. Only a few people in the Cobraverse ever did anything good towards King Cobra himself, but really, we're going to be talking a tiniest bit, mateys, a tiniest bit about the awful people that circle himself around. Of course, I'm talking about people like Couch Chris, or the famous Bog Witch Jessica. Now, thankfully, a lot of these people didn't stick in King Cobra's life too much, but again, they had their fair share of negative influence upon him and his actions. One of these actions being Couch Chris convincing King Cobra to do a three-way with a pregnant lady for a cigarette while cheating on his girlfriend. This would, of course, to lead to a lot of downfalls, but thankfully, a lot of these people aren't in his lives anymore. But even to the most recent of videos of King Cobs, you can still see weird crackheads and weird people in the back of his couch in videos and live streams. If his gothic bad boy attitude wasn't enough to make people think he was a lolcow, it didn't help that later on in his life, his drinking got worse, which included his house looking a little worse and him not taking care of himself. Which really cemented the fact that he might be a basement dweller, allowing him to really cement into that lolcow status. Of course, as most of us know though despite being a little dirty, King Cobra wasn't that bad of a guy. He had a drinking problem, and he had a little bit of a drinking rage problem. But, as far as we know, mateys, he never went after women, he never went after children, and he never went after animals. There, however, was a recording of animal abuse under his record. Though it's not proven, it is speculated. I'll give you that little information later. Cobra was far from a basement dweller, however. He even had his own job and his own business that he created. He worked at many places like McDonald's or Burger King for times and here and there, but it wasn't really until he started making wands. King Cobra jfs started making a side hustle, and dare I say a respectful side hustle, of making his own wands. He was carving them out of tree branches or sticks, and he would spray paint them, decorate them, so on and so forth. This would be a really good hustle for him, considering the first time he talked about making wands, the first 10 sold out in minutes. He had enough money, through the government checks and his wand business along with occasional jobs, to support himself. Unlike most lolcowlers nowadays, where they live in a shelter, a special needs home, or they live with their mommy and daddy, King Cobra jfs lived on his own. He had his own place and he lived on his own dime, which is pretty respectable considering, again, he was a lolcow. Day drinking was his biggest enemy, though, as it had a lot of play on his life, almost had a grasp on him. I've heard a lot of people say how, of course, King Cobra JFS idolizes Ozzy Osbourne, always has as far as we remembered, and he really wants to live like Ozzy. Unfortunately, Ozzy Osbourne was born with a really weird affliction to his body that allowed him to drink a lot of alcohol with little to no risks, and that's unlike any other man nowadays. This would eventually even lead to King Cobra getting sick from drinking. Again, he was trying to live that rock star lifestyle, but his body was not ready for it. Apparently, he was even born with underdeveloped lungs, which could be hard for somebody, but I can only imagine that under the stress of alcohol. I appreciated the one side hustle the best because you were actually getting something a bang for your buck. You were getting a pretty cool and stylized wand from not a piece of crap, and it wasn't too expensive. Unlike nowadays with unholy medallions from those who not should be named, or paracord bracelets and nooses that fill with bedbugs from fat PDF files, wands seem like an honest-to-God business, and that's pretty cool. I feel like people nowadays, if they have a King Cobra wand, that's like up on your shelf. You know, you put that in a glass case. You got a paracord bracelet from Nova Online, or one of those cursed medallions from the He Who Should Not Be Named, you're probably going to hell. You're probably going to Davy Jones's brig. Unfortunately, due to the success of the wands, King Cobra would not get a job after this, seeing as he could just make his money through the government checks and the wands themselves. Due to the wands being spray painted inside of his house, though, like all the time, he would be unfortunately forced out of his house and evicted. He was evicted because a lot of the tenants around him and his neighbors would constantly complain about the fumes in the apartment because King Cobra would spray paint these wands in his own house. He would even reportedly say that he tried to block off the doors and windows with towels while he spray painted so that the fumes would not get out. Unfortunately, that's like seriously unhealthy for him, and even worse for the occupants around him, as the fumes would sneak out behind him into his chimney into the other people's apartments. Of course, this eventually led to someone moving out due to health problems and other people complaining. Apparently, due to what his dad had said, this was a $6,000 complaint as he had done a lot of damage to the apartments around him due to the noxious fumes. Sooner or later, he would live in a house that we've all come to know and recognize. The house that was there wanted the longest with him in his videos, up until the point, well, we'll get to that later. After this, though, his dad would try to convince Cobs to get some help. He noticed his mental decline and the condition that he was living in, noticing that obviously it wasn't normal or okay, and the fact that his drinking had a big play in that. He would try to convince Cobs to get some help due to his drinking alcoholism, but Cobs would deny this and continue on with the rest of his life. This obviously being a huge mistake. One of the things King Cobra is known for the most is his awful cooking videos. Those who don't know, King Cobra would make some really seriously slop and some real meals made out of scurvy for himself and for the YouTubers to enjoy him watch eating. Now, those landlubbers who have a weak heart should not be watching any of these cooking videos. But it just didn't stop at cooking. He would also make cocktails, mocktails, and the occasional beer and soda collabs he would call Cobra's Mists. We'll get into those a little bit later. But I do want to point out that every concoction he made, every weird food hack, every dirty video we got from him was 1,000 times better than what you see Nova Online do. Some of the meals he made were stuff like hard-boiled Mountain Dew and jalapeno-flavored eggs, or even a pig brain and bug sandwich that he did for Halloween. But it didn't stop at food like I had mentioned earlier, as he was a mixologist and made a lot of weird drinks. Some stuff like the Valentine's cocktail.
Got a splash of that Fago firework. Whoop whoop. Splash of that. Just a little splash of that in there. Trolls could use a Tic Tac. Their fucking breath smells worse than my fucking teeth. But yeah, this is a really fucking kick-ass glass, dude. And a splash of that vodka. A splash of that rum. Splash of that tequila. That's what YouTube wants to see. Oh, that's so gross. Wants to see, right? Jeez. So I'll pour a splash of that in there. Oh, dude, this drink combo is looking so fucking gnarly, dude. We'll add our... Okay, the Kinky Aloha is not creamy, so we can add a little bit of that right there. This is fucking ridiculous. And we got this to top it off if we need just a little bit more to do it, but maybe just for a little, yeah, like that. Yeah, okay. This is just fucking ridiculous. You see this drink combo, all the curdling and the, dude. Yeah, man, I got this hot jerky stick right here. It's a classic Hunter's sausage. Should we add it to the drink combo as like a little condiment, like they do with Bloody Marys? There it is, sitting right there, just below the surface there. He's actually drinking it. What the fuck? Oh my god. I get a little bit of those curdly bits. I'm trying to cut down on my drinking, but at the same time, people are like, Cobra, we know you for your crazy drink combos.
A lot of King Cobra's newest stuff would involve lukewarm foods or lukewarm beverages. This was because of the alcoholism getting so bad that eventually it rotted his teeth. And of course, if you're drinking a lot, especially day drinking, you're not going to care about brushing your teeth. So this led to a lot of his food combos or food hacks being lukewarm, room temp, or just weird varying temperatures due to his teeth problems. But make no mistake, the food hacks would continue and they got weird. The only thing I remember that Cobs did negatively was involving his pet bearded dragon called Puff. Puff was first adopted. A lot of people were worried because obviously if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of an animal? Though Cobs seemed to really like Puff, thinking he was the coolest thing out there for the longest time. We would get constant updates and videos about Puff and around Puff until it kind of just stopped. People and trolls would even go so as far as trying to get Puff taken away by animal control because they were worried about his health. A lot of checkups would be made on Puff, and unfortunately none of them were done anything because Puff was in healthy conditions. Even giving the chance to hold Puff, one of the animal rescuers noted how he was healthy and fine. The only thing I've ever felt like I've hated Cobs for, or I didn't like that he done, something that I could really judge, because obviously if you're day drinking, the only person you're hurting is yourself, especially if you don't live with anybody, or even if you're making weird food hacks, or you're just weird in general, you're not hurting anybody, you know what I mean? So the only thing I ever felt like negative emotions towards Cobs, or I hated him for, was the involvement of Puff. You see, he would even admit on a video or live that he used to blow marijuana smoke towards Puff. Not a lot, apparently, but just enough because Puff liked it. Now, for those who don't know, marijuana smoke, cigarette smoke, or any type of secondhand smoke can cause respiratory problems for animals. This being, of course, infections, breathing problems, the list goes on and on. It's not good for them. Secondhand smoke is dangerous, and especially more for animals.
Puff lives to be a very, very, very old bearded dragon. Yes. Puff enjoys the occasional hit of weed, and he likes thunderstorms. Shit you not. Shit you not. Puff doesn't have a favorite strain that I know of. I don't get him stoned all the time, but every once in a while he likes a good fat hit. You know what I'm saying? Believe me, when Puff doesn't want anything, he'll let you know with his body language. If I'm smoking marijuana, Puff will kind of look up like, hey man, give me a hit of that. So I'll take a fucking huge ass fucking hit of weed and I'll blow it into his tank. 1 or 2 hits, he's good. He doesn't need a whole lot, you know. And I've seen him do it. When I give him a hit of weed, he'll lift his head up and he'll close his eyes and be like, I know what that is.
A little while later, we would stop hearing or getting updates from Puff. It wasn't until 2023 did King Cobra make a post on his Facebook in his hometown talking about how his pet dragon has gone missing and was saw around one of the buildings around his complex. Now, King Cobra has a long list of lies in the past about stuff that he was embarrassed about, or he didn't want trolls to know to feed him, give him more ammunition, no more rocks to throw at his glass house. So really, did Puff die and did King Cobra bury him or get rid of the evidence? Or did Puff really go missing? Of course, no one would really know about this because, again, there was no proof on the matter and we haven't had any updates on Puff since. Anytime he would address it on the YouTube, he would tell the YouTubers or his fans and the trolls that Puff is probably still out there hibernating and one day he will find him. I don't know if Puff did die or he went lost. I know what I'd like to think. I'd like to think that Puff ran away and he's living it up somewhere with other lizard baddies, living the dream. But in case he's not, let's give a nice rest in peace to Puff the Dragon. The next to last update we have about King Cobra is when his new girlfriend came to visit him, and her name was Jessica. Jessica being the reason he gets kicked out of this house as well, and later leads him down to a worse decline. Dubbed the Bog Witch, Jessica was known for doing a lot of awful and crazy things on live, often being accused of being a crackhead, taking unprescription pills without her name being on it, and of course, being an alcoholic. Jessica would first meet up with King Cobs, and when they started doing YouTube and live streams together, you would really notice how Jessica would act. Jessica being a woman who was known to having pay pigs, which is a form of lolcow, but people pay you, and living with her mom and dad still. In the occasional fights, of course being arrested constantly, and cracking out and zoning out on showers for hours on end while her mom and dad bang on the door to let them in. If you only have one bathroom in the shit, mateys, and someone's been in that bathroom for 2 whole days straight with the water running, you start thinking some crazy things. And especially if they're still coherent. It would be one thing if Jessica passed out or got knocked out, but no, she was up for like hours on end in the shower call while live streaming and, again, locked in the bathroom. You can only imagine what kind of drugs you need to be to get on that kind of level. On the video appropriately titled, I Ended My Dry Spell, we would first meet Jessica on King Cobra's channel, and along with a few live streams. These live streams, however, being bizarre and very weird. If they weren't arguing, then it was King Cobra passed out while Jessica was on his lap, basically taking over his live stream. Now, we've been seeing King Cobra drink for a very, very long time now. So it was a bit weird that every time he was on live streams with Jessica drinking, he automatically passed out, which led a lot of people to believe that she was feeding him prescription drugs. Again, with the fact that she lives with her parents, there's pay piggies, and she's an insane person who really hits that borderline of crackhead, this would go coincide with each other, as if she's known to be a meth head, what do you think she's going to bring to King Cobra? Now, we don't know if King Cobra did any other drugs other than weed, as he's always stated, but it was never confirmed, but you could take a guess for yourself, mateys. The constant arguments is what finally led to King Cobra being kicked out of his house that we all know and love that he's been in multiple videos for years now. The arguments would be vast, small, and very, very furious, as she would even be heard to scream gutturally at King Cobra and go crazy about him accusing him to do stuff, all because Cobra wanted to cook food. Apparently he wanted to cook food on a pan she disagreed with in his own house, and this would lead to one of the biggest fights having the cops called. Now, if you think a crackhead won't fight with the cops, you're wrong, as she would even fight with the cops, argue with King Cobra in front of the cops, or just argue about the trolls in general. But it was always a constant problem. Even the attendants would call police and for welfare checks, because it would seem like there was constant abuse and fighting, but really it was just Jessica going nuts, even threatening to hit herself and seemingly blame Cobs. Now, we all know Cobs, he's not like that. He's made his mistakes, but he ain't like that, and so it was really, really telling that she was trying to pin him up like this. Now, if you're wondering, how did Jessica meet Cobra? This seems like oil and fire type of relationship. Well, mateys, you ain't wrong, but she first met him on a Kiwi Farms document. That's kind of weird, but I don't know about you, but I'd prefer something as awful as Tinder over a Kiwi Farms to find my next date. On these live streams while King Cobra was passed out, she would do a lot of weird things, like seamlessly kind of touch him inappropriately, again, while he's passed out, suggest a lot of weird stuff, and again, seeming like she wanted to take over his channel. It really seemed like she wanted all of his viewers. I mean, going nonstop, always talking about him, trying to get him, and then, as you would guess, mateys, this relationship didn't last. And while they broke up, and it was a very, very messy breakup with a lot of fights back and forths, and even revenge porn being spread around of both of them. And at the same time, she was trying to play the victim. Again, I'm thinking to get his community. There wasn't a lot of people that liked King Cobra. I can't say that I loved him, but looking back now, especially with what type of people's on the internet, what type of people's out sailing the seas, I gotta tell you, mateys, I think he's my favorite lowcaller. And in fact, I, miss him. I kinda wish my videos were just making fun of King Cobra and his food hacks, rather than just covering PDF files. I know I can control what I do, but really, I'm just talking about what's going on, and what's going on is PDF file after PDF file. I mean, one after the other, it doesn't stop. So it's very refreshing to have a video where I'm just talking about a living legend. Some dude who made weird food and had weird people around him. Really, at the end of the day, the worst thing he did was blow smoke into his bearded dragon's cage. Which, again, is pretty messed up and weird because of respiratory problems. But again, I don't think he was aware of that. And maybe if he was aware from that, from anyone other than trolls, who you obviously won't believe or talk to, maybe things would have been different. Just maybe, though. Being kicked out of his apartment and forced into another one far away, and no more Jessica in sight, King Cobra was left back to his original stick of drinking, making weird cocktails, and weird food hacks. That was, mateys, until Ozzy Osbourne passed away. Like I mentioned earlier, Ozzy Osbourne was probably King Cobra's favorite person in existence. Probably like seconded to his dad, right? Who was also a big part of his life. Probably harder than Ozzy Osbourne's wife. And she took it really hard. I remember hearing like a month or two after Ozzy's death, she was still wearing all black and was just like crying constantly, like unconsolable. So it's crazy that someone out there besides his wife took it just as hard. Cobra's downfall really started here and there, as it would plummet him into a alcohol binge like none other. And I regret to inform you, mateys, this led to his death, at least in my opinion. The cops were called because Cobra was unresponsive and made a welfare check, and that's when people and everyone got the news that King Cobra JFS had passed away. Very sad, very heartbreaking, and I mourn for him and his dad. Again, King Cobra was the only good lolcaller out there, the only type of person that you could watch and not directly hate. I mean, dude didn't have any quorums with anybody. He was pro-LGBTQ, he was pro-gay, I mean, he wasn't racist or anything like that. And again, we see a lot of this. I mean, think of Sierra, the self-proclaimed anti-woke furry. Think of Nova Online and his constant hate to everybody who thinks he's a pedophile. So everybody in the world. And think about people like the Leaping Lemur or iDubbbz. Pieces of crap people who always have something bad to say about somebody else. But really, Cobs, all he talked bad about was his trolls. Nameless trolls, no specific ones sometimes. Just, you know, people that would make fun of him. He shoots back at. And again, I don't like what he did to Puff, and it still pisses me off, and I kind of hate him for it. However, that doesn't make you a terrible person. That makes you up there, but again, compared to the rest of these people, King Cobra looks like a saint. I mean, Jesus Christ. Now, you know my pirate rules. Never mess with any animals. And like I said earlier, I think if someone would have explained clearly to him, like his dad, for instance, or someone who was in the know, that doing stuff like that can harm, you know, really mess up the breathing problems and respiratory issues of animals, then he probably would have stopped. And it's still pretty weird, but it falls under the line of abuse as negligence. Because it was unknown. Still pretty stupid if you ask me. But it didn't give me the vibe of I'm blowing smoke in it because I fucking hate my lizard. You know what I'm saying? Because I hate my lizard. It's given me the idea of he thought that the lizard liked it, which is negligent, and definitely something who drinks a lot would think, you know what I mean? His dad had a lot to say about this too. After Cobs would pass, he would make a few videos talking about the trolls, addressing the fans, and just making a few videos on it. One of these videos was 6 months ago, even on King Cobra's channel now, where he basically had a memorial for King Cobra. And I thought that was very sweet. He had a few words that I would like to play. But before I do, I want to make sure to say, do not be spreading any hate. At the end of the day, King Cobra was weird, a little disturbed and messed up, but again, a saint to compare to a lot of these people. And his dad really took his death hard, as any parent would or should. So do not be going spreading any type of hate whatsoever on this man, nor his passed away child.
Raise a glass to Josh. Drink combo if you got it. And Josh, this is over. I'll go pour one out for you, buddy. I'm going to do a toast to you right now, as we all are. Josh, you accomplished something in life that many people never will. You made a difference. You accomplished something that most people want in life but won't achieve. You left your mark on the world, and you're going to be remembered. I wish you could see just how much you were loved and cared about, Josh. But deep down, I honestly think that you knew that most people were rooting for you and not against you, buddy. Josh, I'm so proud to be your dad.
At the end of the day, mateys, I would like to say, King Cobra, I'm very thankful for you. You were a weird dude with gothic vibes, and again, don't like what you did with Puff. I hope Puff's okay, or he's resting in peace. But I appreciate, King Cobra, that you weren't a creep. There's so many nowadays. It feels like every other day there's allegations against somebody, someone's going to jail for having possession of CP, and so on and so forth. And it's really disheartening. It's kind of scary for any parent out there. And honestly, it just rattles my dang bones. So I appreciate you, King Cobra. You were a weird guy and you made weird food, but you weren't a creep. And that means so much nowadays. Happy birthday. And rest in peace, King Cobra jfs. Well, mateys, I hope you liked that video, and I hope you'll give me a like and subscribe for it. And if you want to be a part of my further journeys, make sure to hit that subscription and become part of me hardy crew. Well, I'll see you in the next one, mateys. Farewell.